Hello and welcome to Leviathan News. Today is July 21st, and we got a special guest today. We got Mr. Nick Westlake from Arbitrum Off-Chain Labs is here to come bring us some news. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, folks.
hmm
Yeah, I always appreciate the invite.
So we got some. We'll get to the breaking news here in a second, but uh, I saw that Arbitrum had announced its grants program this week. The foundation grant program. So is that what you're here to talk about? Us or
Yeah,
talk about?
yeah. Happy to chat on foundation grants, our ambassador program as well, which I think will
Mhm.
be an absolute hit. Um, but yeah, I mean, just to give like the super high level overview is that the Arbitrum Foundation did release its phase one grant program, right? And what does that entail? I think is the question at hand, and it's open to any DeFi application, NFT, game, social layer, and it's also open to infrastructure, both back end, front end, middleware, the whole nine yards. And basically, what this program is designed to do is support and bootstrap, right, upcoming and already present builders here on the Arbitrum blockchain, right? Arbitrum One and Arbitrum Nova. Um, and I mean, basically, what they are, right, is a protocol project platform, whatever you want to call it, will come in. There will be some sort of application process. It is milestone based, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you just make your case, right, in that sense to be allocated a foundation grant. And really, therefore, it's very ambiguous, right? They're for art, like for growth, right? So as long as you personify yourself as contributing to the growth of the Arbitrum ecosystem, right, and you kind of fall into one of these buckets, you are eligible to apply for a grant here. And this is just phase one, right? There will be more phases to come, and I think it's a super exciting time to be on the Arbitrum blockchain itself, being a builder here. We've seen crazy success, if you will, in the last year and a half, and with this type of grants program, right? It will just add fuel to the fire in that sense as well. And then also on the flip side of that, right? Anybody that's familiar with the Arbitrum DAO and maybe gives a cruise through the governance forums itself can see that the DAO and its delegations are speaking and talking about what a program looks like from the DAO side of things as well. So super excited to see what they kind of come up with, what they framework. So really at the end of the day, right, you'll have multiple avenues to hopefully bootstrap yourself here on the network. Happy to answer any questions as well.
So have you guys gotten any applications yet for it?
Um, so yes, yeah, definitely some platforms and
Mhm.
dApps have let us know that they have applied, et cetera. Right, everybody's kind of excited, been waiting for this for quite some time. Um, but yeah, I mean, we just expect that to just continue, right, as this program goes further down the timeline.
And what's the size of the grant? Uh, the grants that have been set aside for this.
Yeah, great question, right? So the Arbitrum Foundation itself did not actually specify, right, what the lower bound or the upper bound size, if you will, of a grant, right? It's really up to the project itself to I'm not going to say know its worth, but to a sense, like do what they feel is best for them in their current growth stage.
Okay, that's understandable.
So what's the sort of like dream applicant look like for you all?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to that, right? It's again open to folks that perhaps don't have MVP in that more of a pre-seed stage, right? And then folks that have been building on the network for quite some time, folks that want to deploy onto the network, things of that nature. But really, what the quote unquote dream applicant would look like, right, is somebody that a platform or builder that has, regardless of PMF or not, right, it is somebody that has a coherent and logical idea, right, a good platform, maybe a novel or primitive in that sense, an iteration, right, but in regards to the applications themselves, right? They are kind of merit based in that sense. Protocols and platforms will have to submit milestones and keep up with those milestones and things of that nature, right? So more or less not helicopter money in that sense, right? But yeah, definitely merit based, and we want to assist these folks in achieving their highest growth potential in that sense.
And is it mostly for DAOs? Is it mostly for individuals? Is it mostly for small groups of people that have some visions about how general is the whole point of the grant system? Like anyone they can bring something to the table to Arbitrum. Do they even have a shot? Should they even try?
Good question, right? And I would also implore the audience to if they are interested in this, we have a bunch of resources on the Arbitrum Foundation website. But this phase, right, is what they're calling phase 1. And it is open to decentralized applications, whether that they fall in the bucket of DeFi, an NFT project, a gaming project, a social layer. And then it's also open to infrastructure builders, right, whether they have front-end services, back-end services, middleware, et cetera. And the extent of the criteria, if you will, is laid out all on the website and in the application process itself. And whether that looks like a solo dev putting out a DeFi protocol or a team of 100, right? It's very it's open to all, as long as you fall into the buckets.
Very cool. So it looks pretty good. And where can people find the application for that?
Yeah, Arbitrum Foundation is the website. You'll be able, right on the top of the webpage, you'll see to the right it says grants. From there, you can. I'm not sure if they'll be funding any Lambos, Angelo, but you can certainly try, sir.
Yes, not yet.
Not yet.
But yeah, you can go to the Arbitrum Foundation website, click on the grants little thing there. You could read about the application process, the criteria, the whole 9 yards. It's very comprehensive.
Awesome.
And what about the phase 2, there, Nick? If I can ask, is it strategically different, or is it just timing? What's the difference with the phase 2 that you guys are planning with this one?
That's a great question, right? So, in regards to what a phase 2 looks like, right? Timing, perhaps some different types of buckets, if you will. Still getting frameworked, right? And when it is released, happy to come back on and talk about it then.
Cool.
Very great. So we have some breaking news that we want to get to. This morning, Conic Finance was hacked. Their ETH Omnipool was drained for 1,700 ETH. Unfortunate for the growing. I mean, they just launched that ETH pool a couple of days ago, didn't they, Garrett?
Yeah, this was pretty new, about a week old. It looked like they were getting into essentially the LST wars here. Mm-hmm. And the root cause of this has been identified. So it only affected the ETH pool. Conic's biggest pool by this point is the Curve USD pool, which is where most of the Curve USD have been flowing. All of them were safe. So basically, Conic Finance was always checking to see if it was an ETH pool, and if it was not, then it was basically including or disabling the reentrancy protection, right? What happened here is that it was looking at the Curve meta registry, saying, is there Ethereum in this pool? The meta registry would return the WETH address. It was only looking for the ETH address. So because of that mix-up, it was disabling the reentrancy protection, which opened the ETH pool to this reentrancy attack. So it's really unfortunate. They're doing all the right things. And the good news is it's a fairly small dollar figure as far as hacks go. I think it's about $3 million. So I don't have any visibility into the minds of the team, but I have to imagine that that 3 million is the amount that could be recoverable.
Programmatic selling.
I have to look into it. Have they has the funds moved out of the Exploder's wallet or anything of that nature? If you know,
I don't know that, but I know it was funded from Tornado Cash, so it doesn't sound like a white hat hacker.
Okay,
it's best Koreans,
but it can be. It can be. There actually, I think, have been some cases where white hat hackers did it through a Tornado Cash. So,
did it?
Are there any talks about some kind of a negotiation with the hacker? Did they approach or whatever?
Not to my knowledge. I know it's on Twitter.
They probably need to like see where the funds go. Did they go to Tornado Cash? No, they're just sitting there. They're still sitting there. So
Zach XBT will be on the case shortly.
yeah, exactly. Well, they didn't go straight into Tornado Cash, so maybe it wasn't the not Leviathan, but Lazarus Group. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad news. It looks to me like a lot of people have panicked and withdrawn their like liquidity from Conic. So if you look at DeFi Llama, let me see if I can pull that up. It was like up to 150 million in TVL, and it's kind of down to like something like 110 million now. So let me get the exact numbers on that. But yeah, people panic, and it makes sense. Like you hear about this, and those are expensive contracts to move in and out of.
Yeah. So let me just bring up the. Looks like the Conic finance team has sent a message to the exploiter. This was sent 22 minutes ago, and it says, I'm just going to bring this up.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so it says, we are aware of your connection to Conic Finance's breach incident. Our team is currently collaborating with security specialists and law enforcement agencies to address this matter. If the funds are not returned in the next 24 hours, we will proceed to involve law enforcement authorities. Please contact Conic Finance or Conic, and they want them to return 50% of the funds. Where did this come from? Did this come from?
50% is a sweet deal.
Yeah, $1.5
million bug bounty.
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know if it's actually the team that sent that.
That would be next level.
Yeah, right. 50% bounty.
If it's like the Conic gang that's trying to get the money back.
Yeah, if it's some random person sending to my wallet address,
yeah, potentially, yeah. I don't know if those emails or anything are good. So, I just wanted to check to see if anybody had sent any messages there. So
no, but their message on one hand, their message is like very firm, like man, get the money back in 24 hours. But on the other hand, okay, keep 50%.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's a little strange.
Speaking of hacks, the Anubis DAO funds were on the move too, right? After quite a long time.
Yeah, that was reported by Zach XBT, actually, to mention him again. We reported on this yesterday, where he had posted about this, about the Anubis funds had been moving, and he had some nice little charts that we can show here. So the Anubis funds were moved, into Tornado Cash. But Beerus sent 95 ETH to this old address. So he kind of put together that this belongs to Beerus's friend Irsan, who was active in the CSGO scene, and they're good friends. And Beerus used Irsan to launder out the hacked funds through CSGO purchases.
Dude, the OPSEC is incredible.
Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe the FBI shows up. Maybe they don't. We'll see how it goes. Can we get the jailcast? Okay. So jailcast alert. So we had some news come out yesterday. Let me get this thing up. So Phantom CEO Michael Kong has hired legal counsel after the multi-chain announces shutdown and the CEO's arrest. So a little bit strange, right? Because Phantom is an independent organization, or at least they should be. And I don't know. Would there be any blowback to Phantom here? You guys think?
My understanding is most of the assets on Phantom, other than like a couple of the native ones, are through multi-chain. So a significant amount of the net worth on Phantom is essentially exposed to this.
Yeah. I think their treasury as well had held a significant amount of multi-chain assets as well.
Wow. So, I also read something yesterday that Spooky Swap, I think it's the biggest DEX on Phantom. They were already hinting about expanding to a different L1.
I saw that.
And I think actually, if Spooky Swap is kind of like I don't know. The only thing I actually remember about Phantom was using Spooky Swap like 2 years ago when I was really exploring DeFi for the first time, and I was looking for cheaper chains. And I don't know. I don't know how people can easily stay on Phantom with whatever's going on. And I don't think that I've seen any like very calming message coming from Phantom. Like
Yeah.
Well, they got to be like scramble mode, right? Times a million.
Yeah, exactly. So Michael Kong has enlisted law firm Kingwood and Mailsons, who he says will hopefully be able to give us a little bit more information as to what potentially might be going on and confirm what is actually really the case of whether the conspiracy hat on, whether the Chinese authorities actually like stole this money and like are now imprisoning the CEO and his sister.
Wow, what a story. Man.
I like that he held everything on his personal cloud server.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that, people. Moving on to FedCast, we have the government has moved an additional 8,200 Bitcoin tied to the Silk Road. This was seen yesterday by blockchain searchers. So CryptoQuant confirmed that these were the Silk Road addresses, and the Bitcoins were moved after quite a long time. So it looks like they're starting to sell it off. The government still holds 195,307 Bitcoin.
Wow.
And this is also including the Silk Road, but additionally other seizures from other criminal incidents.
I've been offline. Did the Bitcoin price tank when they sold?
I don't think so.
I think they probably twap it, and I think they do it on Coinbase.
Yeah, when they auction it, right? Wouldn't they just like have an auction for this stuff?
They can't do it on Coinbase. It's an illegal bucket shop selling securities, right?
That's proud of me, right? It's hilarious.
It's probably good for the Coinbase case with the SEC. After that, you see, even the American government is using our services, so it's probably legit.
Probably. Additionally, yesterday there was a new bill that was proposed by House Representatives. The House Committee on Agriculture put together introducing the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act. And this bill, they say, would establish a regulatory framework for digital assets, protect consumers, and do some other stuff. But notably, Patrick McHenry is not on this bill as someone who's been putting it together, which is interesting because parts of the bill were very questionable. Gabriel Shapiro noted that this bill would potentially give a ton of power back to the SEC because it would reintroduce massive ambiguity because of this, right? So the term digital asset does not include any note, stock, treasury stock. Okay. But then this evidence of indebtedness. So if you create a wrapper, I don't know, is that a debt? If you create an LSD, oh, that's definitely a debt. So a ton of maybe even stable coins here as well too would get wrapped up in this. So this ambiguity in the language would potentially just cause havoc, he says, in DeFi.
Maybe this is a self-owned because we called it LSDs, and LSDs are already illegal. Like that's controlled substance right there.
Right, isn't that like the go-to for the government? They'll just make everything as ambiguous as possible to just blanket rule everything, right? It seems to be the recurring theme.
This is what regulatory clarity looks like. It's more unclear.
There was also another part of the bill. Let me see if I can find this down. There's another part of the bill that would like limit digital asset purchases, so you could only buy up to 10% of your net worth or your yearly income as Bitcoin.
I believe there's a regulation in Canada that's actually that is the same thing, but it's actually put in place, which is ridiculous.
So this is just for retail investors. So accredited investors would be able to buy more than 10% of their net worth in Bitcoin if they wanted to. So rules for me, but not for thee. I guess it's just to prevent retail from getting wrecked. as they usually do. Let's see. Hayden Adams' Twitter was hacked yesterday for a couple of minutes, so he was able to fire off 3 posts shilling just random airdrops for Uniswap. Kind of bad, right? So I actually saw a much better take saying that what these guys should have done is gigalonged Uniswap and with like 100x perps, then drop the announcement saying that Uniswap was going to introduce the fee switch and just profit from that. Like, why waste your time with these like simple airdrop campaigns that nobody's going to click on and nobody's going to believe, and they're going to get deleted in a second, versus an actual like, we're turning on the fee switch, this is my proposal sort of thing.
Maybe they thought the airdrop was more believable than the fee switch.
Yeah, I guess so.
People would have read the fee switch and be like, nah, this guy's hacked.
Yeah. So his account was quickly fixed and it went back to normal within an hour. Let's see what else we have. Brussels. Okay, so Gary, do you want to give us a wrap up on ECC and Paris in general?
Paris, la France est belle en l'été. No, it's been a blast, but to be honest, I'm probably like the worst person to ask because I basically spent all my time in my room preparing for the different like speeches and events I had to go to. But every time I like popped out, it was a lot of fun, right? Like, the nice thing about the event is not so much like the conference itself, but just all the people who are in town. So I got to talk to a lot of founders and like people who are like active within Ethereum. Everyone's bullish, right? Like, it's not just the like Ripple thing. Everyone's building, everyone's launching. Everyone's just talking about the cool ideas that they are like going to be coming out with. So I can't like talk about like some of the alpha I heard because I had been promised the secrecy, but like it's a lot of stuff you're seeing in public, like just going to be a steady stream of really cool launches coming up. So I'm really excited. There's a good thread that Leviathan linked to, which was from a One Chioku, going through like their big takeaways from the event. From the TradFi perspective. So they were talking a lot more about like some of the conversations people were having around like which L2s, like, Arbitrum Day was just, I think, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? There's a lot of talk about rollups, a lot of talk about LSDFi. So like just a lot of the stuff that we see on Twitter. To be honest though, like I was feeling FOMO because I was like getting terrible Wi-Fi and it's like, I can't check my Twitter feed. I can't check Telegram. I can't check Discord. So I envy all of you who were able to like sit and watch all the alpha from your computers.
So pulling up Ichioku's tweet, he says, coming in the TradFi perspective, let me make this a little bit larger so we can all read. So he says that the ZK and LSD space is super crowded right now. There's 100 different variants, maybe even 200 different variants of ZK rollups right now because somebody just wants to deploy money into it, right? And so they're just firing off cash to see what works. And, he says there's nothing in the short term that can soak that amount of capital. And so they're just pushing it. It's kind of like Alt L1 summer, but for ZK rollups. Yeah.
True.
Like after the 10th ZK rollup, like how much more do you need, right? Like, what are you going to do with it?
But a new VC comes that wasn't on the first rounds. Now they're motivated to find a new ZK that they can go early on instead of putting their money into one of the like already known ZKs. Because I think that ZK is going to be huge, but a lot of what we're going to see in the next few months around this narrative probably going to be not that serious, because the race to attract the VC capital is going to outshadow the real race of, okay, how do we really solve a problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so off the top of my head, I can name like 5 that are not launched right now. We had Scroll, who open sourced their repos last week. Yeah, they did. Mantle, I think, is now ZK as well too. And what was the other one that I heard about? Just this week from announcements. I know it's ECC and there's a ton of stuff that is coming out. Base announced that they're going to be in using ZK proofs along with the Optimism stack as well too. So everybody and their mother is hopping on the ZK train.
Garrett, were there a lot of, from what you saw at least, were there a lot of people from TradFi, or was it like pretty much mostly crypto Twitter folks meeting each other?
So I went to one event that was hosted by MEV Capital / Odos. So I feel like that crowd probably had more TradFi people just by its nature, because it had like it was like a VC fund hosting it. Then I went from there to the Law Degen party, which I can't really tell. Everyone's wearing like T-shirts with logos on it and whatnot. I'd say probably the event probably attracted more TradFi people, just because like they wanted to like probably like we're more interested in like seeing some of the speeches and whatnot. But it takes all types like these events.
Yeah. And then he also says the LSDs are overinvested. I kind of see this as well too. Like there's 100 different LSDs. Like what do they all do, right? Like like you're aggregating, or you're making a stable coin on the back, or you're like, I don't know. I haven't, other than the two that are the biggest.
But SFRAX ETH is still giving the best yield no matter who enters, right?
Yeah. So SFRX ETH gets the best yield, but Lido has what Lido does, right? Like other than that, like what are other people going to innovate on? And I think that's the big question going forward.
You know what I'm seeing as well too is like old DeFi practices. Well, they're pretty. I mean, they're still current, but like tacking on the native token emissions on top of the Ethereum yield, and then just they're saying like, hey, my LSD has like 25% APY or something along those lines, right? It's like it times a flat circle.
Exactly. Like eventually, like all the token emissions get distributed and everything reverts to being back to like what the base yield of what you're going to get. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anything crazy recently that would push yields above what like StateFrax Ether is doing, or give you like the size as an institutional investor that Lido does.
Yeah, also, honestly, if someone has ETH, whether it's a huge investor or a medium one or whatever, like if you have ETH and you want to lock it, it's much easier to decide to put it into Lido or Rocket Pool or Frax than any of the new and the other ones. I don't know. It feels safer. I'm not saying it is for sure safer, but it feels risky to just enter a new like to be amongst the first that enter a new LSD.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So he keeps on going, saying that he's going to be allocating even more to on-chain derivatives. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday with Rollbit and how they've seen their growth just skyrocket recently. GMX has been doing pretty crazy stuff. GMX V2 is coming out soon. And then there's like a ton of other on-chain derivatives players. And I don't think there's like one who's taken all the market share yet. So it's a wide open race, I think, still.
It's actually really interesting. I was actually having a conversation with a colleague yesterday about on-chain options, right? And being an American, just in general, right, we don't really have access to CFDs like our European counterparties do, or even general like futures, right? Like it's very capital intensive to a certain extent. So usually the retail user, to speculate and get some leverage goes to traditional American option contracts, right? And actually, like the two leaders of on-chain options right now I believe is Lyra and Dopex, both on Arbitrum. But the TVL is like still super low, right? So I would love to see some innovation, some iteration come out on the on-chain option space. I think it is a bit difficult though to price these things in general on-chain and in general the UX as well. Because here in the States, right, they have best bid, best offer across all brokers, which doesn't exist, on-chain, et cetera. So yeah, I would love to see some iteration on that front as well. A lot of the funds, et cetera, they still just go to Deribit, right? Because it's kind of the easiest for them. But yeah, would love to see some innovation come out of that vertical as well.
What do you think
go ahead, DeFi. No, go ahead.
What do you think should happen, Nick, in order for this capital to flow? Because I think it has two main. first of all, I don't think we really see real money until institutional capital starts getting in, and like this is maybe something that you guys in Arbitrum are already doing. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to maybe you yourselves or protocols that are on your platform. Like, how do you actually try to onboard like big money from institutional capital to really start and developing this whole options ecosystem? And on the other hand, what do you think should happen in order for this to be more even more retail friendly and like starting to really get the retail capital onboarded? Because I think that, for example, Dopex, for example, I do think that they've managed to onboard a lot of retail capital. I don't know if you can say a lot, but everything is relative. So how do you see like this options narrative, specifically maybe an Arbitrum, expand from these two very different angles?
I mean, great questions, right? In terms of like institutions, funds, etc. There are some. They're crypto native, right? But they do operate on chain to a certain extent. In regards to like traditional, like TradFi, etc. Definitely have had heated some conversations regarding some protocols on the network, and then also like Orbit chains as well, which I believe I touched on last time I was here. So there, how long have we, everybody been saying the institutions are coming, right? But now you see with the Bitcoin ETFs getting filed, et cetera, I think that thesis is playing true, right? And I only expect that to accelerate as traditional firms do open up perhaps DeFi arms into integrate their types of strategies on chain, et cetera. In regards to just the general options, like the on-chain options, right? I think two things need to happen, right? I think more liquidity has to flow into these platforms so they can be priced correctly. And then secondly, the UX has to get a bit better, right? And to your point before, DA, like Dopex has kind of taken a good step in the right direction in just like general UI, and then with their scalps as well, because that's what a lot of folks just buy these options for, right? They buy the 0 DTEs, right? Dates to expiry, 0 days, so they can speculate on something going up or down and get that leverage, right? And I think that just that type of UX needs to just get better in regards to both on the UI, right, as well. I mean, you go to like TD Ameritrade or Thinkorswim or even Interactive Brokers, you have the options chain, right? It's like an order book to a certain extent. That just doesn't exist right now on chain, and I just think for retail users to flow in, for like enterprise level capital to flow in here, you need that better UX and UI as en masse, and then also the liquidity aspect is super important as well.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of different variations of people using like Uniswap LPs as kind of the base for the options. It's kind of bad. It's kind of bad for the LPs, but good for the traders. And you can do some pretty awesome stuff where you can offer no liquidation loans up to 1,000x leverage, right? As long as you get the interest rates right.
One other thing as well is that like when you look at a shit coin, right, it's like a call option to a certain extent, right? Like so, and then in that sense, right, like the traders would just go rather eat, an altcoin versus buying like an actual call option that involves like Greeks and things of that nature. And if you want to actually strategize with them, you have to do some math and the whole 9 yards. Where if I want to go buy Shiba Inu Obama Bitcoin coin, I could just go do that on Uniswap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that I've talked to a bunch of teams. There's a bunch of solutions out there. The question is like a lot of these solutions flip as an options trader, you have the edge, right? Because as the options seller, like if you hedge everything perfectly, you should, like your realized volatility is always going to be like lower than your implied volatility. But I don't know if that's going to be the case in using these like Uniswap LPs. Just because of the like difficulties to hedge with these instruments, right? Especially for if you're doing like non-ETH, non-BTC stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah, especially if it's like not a blue chip or something along those lines, where there isn't a venue where you can go hedge yourself like with a on a per platform or something along those lines.
Exactly. Right. So if you don't have that, it's going to be really difficult. And I think to make retail happy, you have to have like deep liquidity, and retail has to have a good UX and stuff. But at the same time, I haven't really seen a good solution that prioritizes the LPs, or at least the liquidity providers first, the option
Great point.
sellers, yeah, over the option buyers.
And you know what? Maybe that's like the problem, right? Maybe that's step number one. You figure out the liquidity,
Yeah.
solution, if you will, and then how to like provide the LPs with a better experience, and then kind of everything else kind of falls into place, right?
Well, here's another one of his takeaways from ECC is Arbitrum dominance. He says, not sure if it's like a geographical thing or an echo chamber, but Arbitrum was definitely dominating the protocol building community. This was even slightly ironic slide from the base presentation where they ranked Arbitrum way above other L2s.
Yeah, I got to talk to him about this. He didn't necessarily have this opinion going into ECC. He was like kind of like leaning that direction. It was just the energy at ECC and everything he saw that pushed him over the edge.
I have a thought on that. I actually saw something, a tweet from Hal Press, I believe his name is, who we all may know on Twitter, who said he's more bullish OP than Arbitrum because of their biz dev to a certain extent. But really, like, what is the biz dev, right? Like, our biz dev is on the protocol level, supporting the platforms building on the network, right? And I think that kind of proliferates out to the builder community, where they kind of acknowledge that to a certain extent, knowing that we will give them the resources to, support their protocols on the network, whether it be via marketing, biz dev, technical help, and now grants, right? Versus some other chains, right, who are very much focused more maybe on the enterprise level type of stuff. Whereas at this point, right, like we're very focused on the protocol level and building that base out. And again, I think it's just apparent in the chain itself and how vibrant the ecosystem is, and in particular DeFi, right? And I think you'll see some cool stuff coming out from the gaming side of things as well from Arbitrum. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's just my 2 cents on that.
And the Arbitrum grants program is just starting.
Exactly.
I think
it's amazing. It's gonna be chaos a little bit, but it'll be good. Net positive for everybody on the network, I believe.
Yeah.
I think
one other thing I've seen on the DAO forums as well, right? It's actually like, instead of using the Arbitrum token as grants, why don't they use the sequencer revenue? Because it does go to the DAO, right? So why don't they use the sequencer revenue as grants, and it be in the form of Ethereum instead of ARB, right? In the post 4844 world, it is modeled, I guess one could say, where the sequencer revenue will, increase, et cetera, right? So just a super interesting thing as well that is kind of unique to the Arbitrum DAO itself.
So yesterday, Polygon launched their what they call is like the first decentralized sequencer on testnet. I forget the name. I think it was like Dunzo or something. And like, what is off-chain and Arbitrum doing on the sequencer decentralization front?
Yeah. Actually, we one of my colleagues here at Off-Chain Labs had to talk about that at Arbitrum Day, right? They're definitely speaking internally on how to, decentralize the validation, the sequencer, et cetera. One thing we're very, we harp on here in Off-Chain Labs is building the best technology and getting it done the correct way, right? So it does trickle down to the end user, no problems, et cetera. But yeah, definitely thinking about it internally, and we'll definitely have some headway on that moving forward.
Nice. Yeah, they called it Doppio.
Actually, I missed that, so I'm gonna have to go follow up on that actually.
Yeah, that was yesterday actually. So we reported the testnet called Doppio. It's open to external nodes over the next few months, and they're going to be testing it on the it's just testnet for now, so not mainnet. Because that's a big shift, isn't it, to go from like centralized sequencers to
it's an overall.
Yeah.
It's tough stuff.
Is there any timeline on that? Like, do you guys know?
No direct timeline currently. Yeah,
it's a really big problem. Nobody's just like effectively solved it yet at scale. So, yeah. And then there was some Milady chat in Ichoku's thing, which we already know, right? He says like Milady's not an NFT, it's the culture, but we already knew that. And lastly, he says we're still in PvP mode. fiat rails have not been rebuilt. That's true. A lot of distrust, and AI has been just like crushing stuff. I listened to a podcast, the Odd Lots podcast yesterday, and they had CoreWeave, I believe the name was. So they were one of the largest Ethereum miners from like 2017 until 2021, and they've fully switched over to AI now, because after building up the largest Ethereum mining service in the world, they kind of like looked at their products and they said, okay, well, we have like the bottom level of data center that we'll ever need. Like, how are we ever going to grow? Like, it's always a race to bottom with crypto mining, because like you need the cheapest hardware to be able to run this stuff at the lowest cost with the lowest energy price, and it's really like a race to the bottom. And so what they did is they slowly started to move away from the just general retail video cards, GPUs, to like this really high-end NVIDIA like tier 3 and 4 data center setups, and now they're doing like all AI. So I think maybe some of the other infra providers are going to see this as well too, and like reconfigure their data centers. It'll be a little bit behind, obviously, but I think the AI stuff is just going to suck a lot of the investment into crypto infra over the next few years.
It's a fair point, right? It's kind of the new shiny thing on the block to a certain extent.
I think that like also I'll let you go in a second, but the switch from Ethereum proof of work to Ethereum proof of stake, I think also had a huge impact as well too, because like, what do you mine? Like, where do you put all that GPU power now that we've switched? Yeah. Where's it going?
Right?
Yeah. There's nowhere to go, right? You can mine Ethereum on a, you should have a good server if you're going to have a good uptime, but it's not like it was before where you need giant warehouses filled with GPUs. So I don't know where we go from here.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point there that so much processing power and the GPUs and all that stuff. It's looking for something to do now after the Ethereum move. And I think that just like Nick said, AI for at least I think 1 or 2 years, it's gonna be the most shiny thing. But I think for builders in blockchain, that's actually kind of good, because like a lot of the distractions and like the false VC money that just wants to pump and dump, I think it's gonna not. I think crypto won't be its number one place to visit. So I kind of think we're seeing a very good time to build, and because in my opinion, the narrative that really is gonna push us forward is once some of the big institutions start saying, okay, come on, like. We're starting to play here as well. Like, we've let these like retail guys laugh around and enjoy themselves for long enough. We have some serious platforms here. We're onboarding real capital, and then I think that's our next bull market, I believe.
Yeah, I think there'll probably be some opportunities to mine for like Filecoin or maybe Dash or something, but. I don't know. I think with the switch from proof of work to proof of stake, like that all that infra investment, if it's not going into Bitcoin, has to go. Like, where's it going to go, right? And they probably switch over to doing AI, or it just stops. Maybe they start doing like AppNet or like sequencer stuff. Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, how much do you actually need, right?
I mean, with like something like ChatGPT, like a large language learning module or whatever, like that is, I really don't know. I might be talking on my ass here, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's way more processing intensive than versus mining just Ethereum, et cetera. So,
yeah, and you can't just use the like off-the-shelf GPUs either.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, you need specialized data centers that have near like 99.9999 uptime, like near 100% uptime with like high data availability, throughput. It's got to be top of the line. and you have to have backups for your internet, you have to have backups for your electricity. It's just a whole different beast, right? Because you think about like a Bitcoin mining farm out in Texas that like turns off when the price of electricity gets too high. Like you can't do that in an AI facility. Just like shut everything down.
Is NVIDIA $1 trillion company yet? Or are they approaching it?
They should be. So looking at the NVIDIA
what's weird too is that NVIDIA has kind of ruled this whole AI processing power, and not much from AMD.
Well, you know what it was? The CoreWeave guy said on the podcast I was listening to yesterday that the reason that is that 15 years ago, NVIDIA open sourced its architecture, and so like all of the like dependencies that these AI people are building on, it's all NVIDIA. Like everything is just open source in GitHub, and they've been
ahead of the game, man.
Exactly, they've been really transparent about putting all of their repos out there, and just like letting builders go out. And so now people that are using AMD, they're having to catch up just by getting all the developers on board. I mean, if developers don't use your repos and your dependencies, then you're going to lose, right?
Yeah, useless. That's super interesting. I didn't know that. They actually, the story of NVIDIA is how they came up is super interesting one as well. If you guys haven't looked into that.
So the space now to mine, if you want to go do mine, is obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, LTC and Doge, Dash, Cadena,
Litecoin. Can you still mine Litecoin?
You can mine Litecoin, yeah, and Filecoin. So choose your winners out of there.
But on the Litecoin network, I think that's what it is.
Yeah. So choosing winners out of there, I think, is going to be a little bit difficult.
If I'm going to put my money on somebody, man, I would probably say Filecoin.
Yeah. Now that it's been like dumped from
the heavens.
Probably one of like, is that criminal that they listed at $200 and it's now trading at $400?
Depends on what you.
No, sorry, they listed at $10. They listed at 10. Let me pull this up. Let me pull an actual Coinbase chart up. So Filecoin went from $10 to $220, or no, sorry, $240 at the peak of the last cycle. In not even peak of last cycle, like April 21, and now it's trading back at $4 again.
What?
Yes, it's a little questionable.
It's only down 92%, which is compared to some of its peers could be a lot worse.
Well, that's how it goes in crypto. Down 99% and still looking to buy more, right?
You never know if you're convincing yourself, so like so much of crypto investing is surreal, like even after you do it for not that long, I started in different summer of 2020, but already like you've seen all kinds of stuff where you tell yourself, oh my God, this was on that number, and that like prices of stuff went all over the place. Like I had so much money here, I didn't have any money there. Like it's definitely a surreal kind of investing that I'm not sure you can find anywhere else.
It's like a video game, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Numbers on a screen.
Maybe we should only do it on Arbitrum Nova.
So we talked about Unibot yesterday, and today they announced Unibot X, which is a mobile trade or like a web mobile trading interface. So you'll be able to move away from Telegram and actually like trade through a browser. This looks pretty cool. It's been released to early access. I believe the top 200 holders inside of Unibot. It's probably natural for them to move away from Telegram to like other spaces to kind of broaden the base who can use their tools.
I'm mega bullish on those guys. I've had a couple of conversations with them. They're serious.
Can you bring them in for an interview? We would love to speak with them.
Yeah, I can totally ask them. Yeah, for sure.
That'd be awesome. Coinbase Borrow, which allowed you to borrow up to 30% of your BTC, is shutting down. They didn't say if it's lack of demand or regulatory heat. They just said they want to focus on other products, general corporate speak. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Also, Argent Wallet launched Unframed NFT marketplace on Starkware. Yeah, no, I know.
I haven't heard that name in a while, man. Starkware.
Yeah, And OpenSea has launched Deals, a P2P trading interface for NFTs, so that if you are trading your Bored Ape, you're not going to get robbed by some like random person in a Discord.
Why? Because they did what?
So it's a P2P trading platform. So essentially, like you can put up whatever you want, and then the other person puts up whatever they want, and then you just make the trade. Yeah.
Like instead of money, you simply.
Well, you just a lot of P2P, a lot of NFT deals are just P2P, right? That you're just saying, oh, hey, like I've got these 3 NFTs. Do you want to trade for these 4 NFTs, right?
Nice.
Or I've got 1 and you got 2. Let's exchange. There's not really been a good way to do that. You kind of have to like find a trusted party or like just.
By the way, is that legal? Like from like a taxation point of view or whatever? Like, won't people start telling them, "Oh, you can do it because you need to pay"? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
You know, it's funny. I was speaking with a colleague the other day as well, and that since like testnet ETH is worth some money, right? Like when I send testnet ETH to my developers, is that a taxable event? Like, you know what I mean? It's
even worse. Is that a securities fraud?
Yeah, right? Am I committing like felonies as I'm sending the testnet Ethereum?
Yeah. Is this broadcast even legal? Like, are we even allowed to discuss it?
Yeah. So that's, OpenSea's been getting the butt kicked on the volume side. Oh yeah, I wanted to end on ECC. It's wrapped up now. Garrett, you're heading back home.
I'll be back in America next week. I had to schedule my plane flight for the weekend, so I wouldn't miss any Leviathan live streams.
Fun.
Any more, I should say.
Dedication.
Go enjoy Paris, man. Get outside.
Exactly.
Paris, je t'aime.
So speaking of ECC, they announced that the next year's ECC is going to be taking place in Brussels. So end of an era. Goodbye, Paris.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How long has it been in Paris? Like many years?
Since the beginning.
Yeah, since inception, yeah.
Wow. So why are they moving? Any idea why they're moving?
They didn't say.
All right.
I didn't say.
Maybe
yeah.
next time.
So it's going to wrap it up. A bunch of stories actually today. Nick, thanks for coming on. Appreciate the information about the Grant Foundation, the Ambassador Program, and just what's happening at Arbitrum.
Always, man. Always a pleasure coming on. I enjoy jamming with you guys.
Awesome.
Feelings mutual, sir.
Thank you. Hi.
Bye, folks. Have a